Welcome back. This video explains the strategy of a 3-3-1 junk zone defense in Ultimate. This scheme utilizes a defensive front called junk that puts enormous pressure on opposing handlers and forces the offense to make a high number of throws in order to gain yards. Junk zone is easy to learn and play, making it accessible for youth and casual players. In this video, we will learn the basic junk formation and see how junk look minimizes the throwing lanes available to an opposing offense. Then, we'll break down what each defender is responsible for in this scheme, and finally, we'll analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the junk zone. In this video, the opposing offense is in blue, heading towards the left end zone. The disc is with the center handler shown in black. In this example, the offense is set up in a basic horizontal stack. That means 3 handlers are in a line across the field, players 1 through 3 here. Then 4 cutters are set up 15 yards down the field, and they're moving in and out of our zones trying to get open. Now here is our defense, shown in red. Formation makes sort of an arrow shape pointing right at the disc. That's an important metaphor for how this defense works. It's all focused on the point of attack, so every player on our team should be facing the disc at all times. Junk zone works by applying high pressure to the thrower, so each defender needs to be reading the thrower and reacting to where the disc goes. Here's an overview of what the junk zone is set up to defend. Defenders 1, 2, and 3 are set up to block off forward passing lanes. The thrower has their choice of backhand or forehand options, but no lane will be open in the center of the field, and no lane will be open for more than 5 yards down the field. In the middle, defenders 4, 5, and 6 are covering equal thirds of the field. They're our second line of defense, responsible for blocking any throw that goes over the head of defenders 1, 2, or 3. Defender 7 is our last line of defense, covering the entire width of the field, but only for deep passes that fly over the head of 4, 5, and 6. As you can see, there are 3 defenders up front at the point of attack, 3 defenders covering middle thirds of the field, and 1 defender in a deep zone. That's 3, 3, 1. This gives us both the name and the explanation of what the zones are. This zone keeps its shape and moves with the disc when the offense makes progress up the field. As we've seen before, defense is always a trade-off. You can't play perfect coverage on every part of the field all the time. The 3-3-1 junk zone is no different. So let's look at what the 3-3-1 is giving up. This defensive scheme freely allows swinging the disc to either side or making backwards dump passes, but that's about it. If the offense wants to go backwards, we'll let them. The offense will need to make dump passes or swing passes to reset the stall count every few seconds. This requires the offense to make several extra passes on each point, raising the total number of throws required to score. Junk zone works psychologically to frustrate opponents. When they feel like they have nowhere to go with the disc, they become impatient, lose their discipline, and force bad throws. This creates turnovers and extra possessions for our team. Let's break down what each player is doing in this scheme. For starters, each player has 2 jobs. Their primary job, and then a secondary job they need to shift into when the disc moves. Let's start with Red 2, who's marking the disc. He's responsible for marking the center handler. When the disc is in the center, Red 2 runs up and initiates a stall count. This is a flat mark meant to block any throws straight up the field. Red 2's second job is to shift into a poach position when the disc is swung to either handler. We'll see that in just a minute. The next position is our poachers. Poachers are set up in the throwing lane on one side of the thrower. Red 1 is the home poacher because he's closer to the home sideline, shown on the bottom of the screen. Red 1's first job is to block any disc that flies through that lane. He needs to stand far enough behind the mark to avoid a double team foul call. Red 1 is facing towards the disc, and he absolutely must block any throw that tries to come to the left side of his body, between him and the mark. Throws to the right side of his body are pretty much only going to the home side handler, which brings us to the poacher's second job. When the disc goes to the home sideline, he should push up to mark the disc and initiate the stall count. He'll have support on either side to help, so always keep a flat mark. When the disc moves back to the center, Red 1 goes back to poaching in the throwing lane. On the away side, Red 3 is doing the same thing. As the away side poacher, he blocks any disc that tries to come between him and the mark. If the disc moves towards the away sideline, the away poacher pushes up and applies a flat mark and initiates a stall count. When the disc goes back to the center, Red 3 goes back to poaching. We will see what those defensive shifts look like in just a moment, but first, let's look at our second line. Red 4 and 5 are our wings, set up on either the home or away sideline. A winger's primary job is to cover 1/3 of the field. This is a lot of space, and there may be more than one cutter in this zone from time to time. But remember, any throw coming into the zone has to come over the head of the front line. Keep your eyes on the thrower, and you'll know if a throw is coming. A throw that goes high up in the air will take longer to fly. Wingers should attack the disc in the air for a good chance at a block. If the throw is complete, no problem. Don't worry about marking, just drop back into your zone again. Let the front line catch up to the disc and apply a mark. The winger's second job happens when the disc is swung to their sideline. So here, the home side winger reacts when the disc gets passed towards the home sideline. The wing needs to collapse towards the sideline and become a lane poacher, blocking any throw between him and the new mark. This is easy because it's a smaller space to cover than a frontline poacher. Pinched between the mark and the sideline, there just isn't much space for a cutter to attack in this area. Notice the dotted lines showing where each player goes when the disc is swung to the home sideline. Each defender shifts into their second job. Red 1 snaps down to apply a mark. Red 2 rotates back and becomes a poacher in the same place where Red 1 just left. Red 4 pushes towards the sideline to complete the junk front. If everyone reads the play and makes their adjustment quickly, the offense has gained minimal yards and now has nowhere to go except back to the center. The wing defender on the away side does the exact same jobs, but on the other sideline. They cover 1/3 of the field and then snap back into a lane poach if the disc swings to their sideline. Red 6 is our midfielder. His first job is covering the middle third of the field and blocking any disc that goes over the head of our front line. The mid often has 2 cutters in his zone, so he must divide his attention. In general, the midfielder should mirror the disc. If the disc goes to the home side, flow towards the home sideline and favor defending cutters that are closer to that side. If there are no cutters in the middle of the field, the midfielder should follow the last cutter out of his zone. A good midfielder will identify where those cutters are going and notify the defenders assigned to that zone that someone is coming in behind them. Good communication leads to smooth transitions from one zone to the next, shrinking any gaps available in the seams. The midfielder's second job is to cover support for our deep defender. If multiple cutters are running deep, the deep defender will be split and can't possibly cover that much ground alone. The midfielder drops back to support, communicating with the deep defender to decide who will cover which cutter. In general, though, the midfielder wants to cover the second cutter to go deep, or the deep cutter that's on the same side as the disc. Our last teammate is the deep defender. The deep's main job is to cover the entire deep area of the field and attack any throw that goes over the head of our second line. The deep defender needs to be good at reading the flight of the disc to know where it will come down. The deep defender also needs to have good speed to close on cutters and get a chance for a block. These are long throws that will take several seconds to arrive, so the deep defender can effectively cover a larger area, but he must read and react quickly to attack the disc. If the deep defender is too slow and can't block the disc, he should immediately peel off. Don't worry about pressuring the new thrower that has the disc. Just sprint towards the end zone and re-establish that deep zone defense. Don't let any cutters get in behind you. If a cutter abandons their deep cut and runs back towards the disc, communicate with the defender in that zone to let them know that a cutter is coming in behind them. The deep defender's second job happens when the offense advances close to the end zone. The deep meshes into the second line, essentially sharing the middle zone with the midfielder. This results in the second line each covering 1/4 of the field rather than 1/3. As the offense approaches the end zone, the deep defender needs to communicate with the midfielder to let them know which side they're going to cover. The 3-3-1 junk zone is good because it's easy to understand and implement. This makes it a good first zone defense for players to learn. It works to pressure throwers and deny easy yards, which can frustrate inexperienced offenses. A great benefit is that only the deep defender really needs to be fast, and only the front 3 need to have good endurance to run constantly, so this defense can work even if we have an athletic disadvantage. On the other hand, this defense is more complicated than basic man-to-man schemes, where each player is only responsible for one single person. To be successful, our players need to transition their thinking from focusing on a player to focusing on the disc. Our defense must stay disciplined and keep their eyes on the disc. Good opportunities for the junk zone come up when the offense is impatient and greedy. If they aren't willing and able to make 20+ passes in a row, they won't be able to score. If the disc goes up in the air, our players should consider it their property and attack. Go up strong and get a block. This defense needs time for people to get in position and set up, so it works well in a dead disc situation. It will be hard to get in position if our team is on offense and suddenly turns over the disc. It may be good to go to man defense in that situation. If the other team is bigger than us and can outjump us for discs, we may struggle. Patient handlers that can work the disc back and forth consistently without getting greedy will eventually beat us, but that's okay. If they have to work hard to score, that means our defense is good, even if their offense is too. Lastly, if the handlers are skilled at throwing over the top using hammers, thumbers, elevator passes, or just strong high-release backhands and forehands, all of these are a huge problem. The 3-3-1 challenges throwers to go over the top. If they have those skills and can rise to the challenge, our defense is not even going to slow them down. In review, the 3-3-1 has 3 players up front at the point of attack to block off throwing lanes in a junk formation. Then, 3 second-line players in zone coverage. Last, 1 deep zone player. That's 3-3-1. The junk front is about maximum pressure. There's nothing easy upfield, so the offense is forced to make a difficult throw over the top or make several swing and dump passes to make progress. We want to force the offense to complete 20-plus passes in order to score. All our defenders need to turn their bodies to face the disc and move when it moves. Each player has 2 jobs, so they need to be able to see the disc and adjust their role accordingly. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to come back for more videos.